So let's talk about AI because that's something that you're working on developing. Tell me about where you sit on AI and what you're working on now, because you apparently are involved in that on how AI is about to change everything in law. And just give me a little bit of a background of what's going on with you and AI.
Yeah, so I got involved in AI, I want to say in March of 2023. I believe that's when ChatGPT 4.0 dropped. 3.5 had been around since October, November of 2022. Some people were paying attention then. I wasn't. I really started paying attention when 4.0 dropped. I paid the $20 a month, and I still have the subscription to the service for OpenAI and ChatGPT. And it blew my mind. And that was a model that's already over 2 years old, and the models now are much better. ChatGPT is up to 5.4 from 4.0. And not only do I use that, but I use Claude, I use Perplexity, I use Grok, I use Copilot, I use Gemini. And what I'm seeing and what I believe will happen is that not only will AI transform all everything that we do and how we handle everything, but I think it's going to significantly affect the legal practice. I don't think it's ultimately going to replace lawyers completely, but I think it's going to replace or I guess supplant a lot of what we do. And ultimately, I think the number of lawyers that will be required will be significantly less than the numbers that are practicing today.
So the one thing that as I talk to lawyers, I talked to another really high-powered lawyer, and he said his most important skill to him was writing, which I think would surprise a lot of people to hear that. And you mentioned also that writing was really important as we were talking here. So how do you use AI to assist you with writing, or do you?
Well, that's a great question. So I use a platform called Grammarly, which has an AI component to it. And it is just what it sounds like. It's a grammar-based platform, but it goes beyond just making sure that you have the right noun, verb, agreement. You have, the spell check is working. It does a much better job in terms of making sure you're speaking the active voice, you're using surround nouns and verbs, that you're not having extra words or extra clauses or extra phrases. And I find that's the biggest tool I have. And I recommend that to everybody, no matter what practice area, no matter what you're doing, whatever your profession is, that it makes your writing so much better. And it's called Grammarly. I think I pay like $100 and some for an annual subscription. And it just makes my life so much easier. It plugs into my emails, it plugs into my Word documents, it plugs even into my social media. And I think that's the biggest change. Now, I know some people use AI to upload whatever they're finished and upload it to one of these platforms and say, make it more persuasive or make it stronger or make it pithier. And that's certainly one thing you can do. And I've done that occasionally, but in terms of what I do day to day, I largely use it for Grammarly and so forth. I don't really use the AI to rewrite my documents.
So what about for research? I sometimes find that AI is helpful in digging through data to find a gem in there that I'm looking for. Do you use it for anything like that?
That's true. We have at our firm, we have Copilot, we have a closed system, and it's important that if you're going to upload anything into any AI platform, that you understand whether it's open or closed, whether it's confidential or not. And what I mean by that, and I'm sure some of your readers are familiar with it, is that if it's an open platform where they're training off your data, you've lost the confidential nature of your data. So you don't want to include like medical records or personal financial records in an open platform. But if you have a closed platform and it's really up to you to figure out whether it's open or closed and the scope of all that, then you can upload more confidential information and documents. Now, if it's nothing that's confidential, then, and you feel you're comfortable with it, you can certainly use a open model. That's certainly a personal decision there.
So if a law firm came to you today and said, "Hey, we want to use AI, but we're terrified," how would you advise them? What would be the steps that they want to go through to address that?
I think first they would probably want to do some general education about the platform. There's lots of webinars, books, white papers, podcasts on it. I'd probably educate themselves as much as they can. I'd read their state's local ethics rules. Most states these days have a AI ethics opinion, so they should probably look into that and see what that says. And then maybe consult with somebody in that space if they felt they still were uncomfortable in terms of what to do. And then once they have all the information and they've done their due diligence, they can go ahead and start, putting together an AI committee, putting together a written AI policy, and then start evaluating what their needs are and making demos and short-term licenses to see which platforms work best for them.